This episode of Cowboy Crossroads is brought to you by my friends at the Western Folklife Center in Elko, Nevada, who kindly provided a space for me to record this interview. You can find out more about the Western Folklife Center at westernfolklife.org. I'd like to start today's show with a poem written by Texas cowboy Joel Nelson. This piece is entitled Equus Cabayas, and Joel wrote this in 2002 for the Chinese Year of the Horse. I have run on middle fingernail through Eolithic morning. I have thundered down the coach road with the revolution's warning. I have carried countless errant knights who never found the grail. I have strained before the caissons. I have moved the nation's mail. I've made knights of lowly tribesmen and kings from ranks of peons. I have given pride and arrogance to riding men for eons. I have grazed among the lodges and the teepees and the yurts. I have felt the sting of driving whips, lashes, spurs, and quirts. I am roguish. I am flighty. I am inbred. I am lowly. I'm a nightmare. I am wild. I am the horse. I am gallant and exalted. I am stately. I am noble. I'm impressive. I am grand. I am the horse. I have suffered gross indignities from users and from winners, and I felt the hand of kindness from the losers and the sinners. I have given for the cruel hand and given for the kind, heaved a sigh at Appomattox when surrender had been signed. I can be as tough as hardened steel, as fragile as a flower. I know not my endurance, and I know not my own power. I have died with heart exploded neath the cheering in the stands, calmly stood beneath the hanging noose of vigilante bands. I have traveled under conqueror and underneath the beaten. I have never chosen sides. I am the horse. The world is but a player's stage. My roles have numbered many. Under blue or under gray, I am the horse. So I'll run on middle fingernail until the curtain closes, and I will win your triple crowns, and I will wear your roses. Toward you who took my freedom, I've no malice or remorse. I'll endure. This is my year. I am the horse. Howdy folks, this is Andy Hedges, and you're listening to Cowboy Crossroads. On each episode, I interview a different guest and ask them to share stories and discuss music, poetry, and culture from the working cowboy West and beyond. My guest today is Henry Reelbird. Henry Reelbird is a rancher, an educator, and a poet. He was born and raised in southeast Montana on the Crow Indian Reservation, where he was raised in the tradition of the Crow tribe. He still speaks Crow as his primary language. Henry is a well-known performer at the cowboy poetry gatherings around the country, and he served as the Poet Laureate of Montana from 2009 to 2011. I sat down with Henry during the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada, and recorded this interview. Here's Henry Reelbird.
I grew up, I was born, and my mother, her name was Lucy Wallace Reelbird, and her name is Bishejinabia, cow necklace. Bird horse, a cowboy, give her that name. Respectable cattle back in the open range days had bells upon their neck. And so that's what bird horse gave that name to my mother in hopes that she'll be respectable and prominent in the Crow society. And then my dad, his Jim Real Bird, and so Dagagi Tashtish, bird shirt. And so we're just regular Indians. They were the first ones born on the reservation. We moved over to that reservation where we're at now, Crow Agency, in 1883. And then first crop that was born pretty much were my parents. And so those, my grandfather and them, they were first generation. Second generation, my mom and dad, and then me, I'm third generation. Now we've got fourth generation, my kids, and then fifth, my grandchildren. But as far as growing up, they brought me back up on greasy grass. A lot of people misnomer on greasy grass, lodge grass and lodge grass creek and all that type of stuff. But on the greasy grass, about 1 mile up from the mouth of the greasy grass where that drains into the Little Bighorn. My grandfather, eyes taken out, Dick Wallace, Ishtarushtu, and his wife, Babuchtawimura. She never really had no English name, just otter stays in water. And so then when they brought me back, she said that from the hospital, and I was the fourth child, and so my grandmother, Otter Stays in Water, said that this boy will name him Baji Ujecha, timber leader. I told my mother, your dad had a dream, and in that dream the crows were dancing, and they stopped the drum at the dance and said, now we are going to sing Timber Leader's song. And then they sang the song and they danced. And so my grandma, Otter Stays in Woman, told my mother that your dad wants you to name one of your boys, Baji Ujecha. And that's me, Timber Leader. I'm from a dream. And so we're still active with actually living in dreams, even to this day. And so from there, I went out and we were in poverty. We never really know that you're in poverty until you leave, according to Casey Tibbs. And I believe that Casey said that I never knew I was poor until I left home. And so we had everything we needed. And there was really, but at the time, my dad didn't have a job. There were jobs that were hard to get and everything, but he ended up working for farmers and different things like that and try to have a few cows too. But so they gave me away to my aunt, Blanket Without She Looks Good. That's Annie Old Crow. And so they had me, and so my grandpa, my dad's dad, that's owns Painted Horse, Mark Realbird. He saw me, and there was his grandson, orphan child, and he said, you don't have to be that way. You give him to me. And so they gave me back to my grandpa, and I never left grandpa until he passed away. So grandma, her name is Baatish, joins everything she joins. Florence Medicine Tail Realbird, and my grandfather owns Painted Horse, Mark Realbird, and so that's where I came from. And so my grandpa would always say that, well, I've seen two generations, my generation here on the reservation, and then your dad's, and then now you're starting out. And so all of the preparation in life he put together in me on how the warriors were trained, how to ride in the sagebrush flats, to where sagebrush all over the place. Everybody's seen sagebrush flats. So to ride, gallop through there in the beginning, hanging on and everything else. But at the end, after I became decent at it, he said, let go of the reins and put your hands up. And he would whip that horse. And the horse was free to go. And I would ride him like that. And that's how I learned how to ride. Or else just busting into a cutbank, a real high cutbank the horse can't go over. Just run at it full blast, and that horse putting on the brakes and scooting on his rear end left to right and everything else. And you'd have to hang on. Or else just flat running where you don't have to hang on. Just flat sit behind the withers and balance and go. And all these things, plus he would always play around and sing his medicine songs and sing other songs, and he would always talk about, I'd ask him all these questions too, but he always said that life is from the water, ground, and the wind. And so then thought is from the shadow of a flame, and all these things, and how thought was given to human beings to become real human beings with. Fire was given to the human beings. And all of these things, and all of the old stories that he told me, and I've picked it up from everybody too. But as far as that goes, my grandpa would always say, now this ground moves different. This ground moves with money. But you have to get an education, and that's all I ever knew, was to be able to go to college. And then by the time I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a teacher and a cowboy, and that's all I've ever been all my life. I've done other jobs, but not really. The future that I had was in thought and writing, and so then I became a bronc rider, and then we had I went to college and rode broncs there. So all I did was think, and then after a while, whatever happens, we have the clan system at home, lodges of driftwood, and so I'm a child of the Whistling Water. My dad's a Whistling Water man, and I'm a child of that clan. And then my mother is a Big Lodge, and I'm an adult member of that clan. And so anything you want, you ask your clan parent, just like a little robin helps its young, and that becomes, you ask a clan parent asks for something, that becomes. And so they protected me like that with a name, and I've got facial markings. And my grandpa would always say, they knew you were coming. And after he died, then my other grandpa, Medicine Crow, took care of me. And so he would always say this too, that they knew you were coming, so everything's set, the land and everything is set up on that east side, Medicine Crow's land, and then Real Bird land, and it's all there. And so after I quit riding bucking horses, I went over there and started the ranch, and I'm the only Crow Indian on the east side of the reservation, 80-mile stretch. And so that's I always tell my boy owns it now, my kids, and so I always tell them, we're tough people. You need to know that, and it takes one heck of a person to be able to hang on to that buck rein, and then spur that horse in the neck and go for it like that, and live like there's no tomorrow or whatever, But then again, to be able to get the spirits to come out, and to be able to attain mysticism and to see dreams and stuff like that. And so this is the life that I live, how life used to be before the introduction of the Western thought. And so I possess that. That's my inner core. But then on the outside, in the now time, I live the life of Henry Reelbird, like that. And so when we started out, a beautiful name like that, to come out and to do these things. There was another one, this old man, Old Crow. He got some buffalo fat on the ribs and rubbed my face with it and asked, prayer and wishful thought are given to people to become human beings with. And so Old Crow put that buffalo fat on, rubbed it all over my face and said, Nashika Kada, Jawa Chaji, Marach Chirik, Mawitcha Gashti, Marach Chiride, Ahuruk, Marach Shachig, the Shachissa. Make this little man-child, human being, brave, with no fear, to have a lot of stories to tell. And from his bravery, busted noses and arms and stuff, but to become a good man and for many winters to come. That's what that old man asked for me. I think of it sometimes. And they put, everybody's behind me. They put my mother's aunt, my mother's sister, Shoshone Bannock, her husband put sweet sage in my boots so it would protect me out there. And then my grandpa let me use the scarf so that it would protect me. And so all these things that are there, and then now we get up into this level, and I still smoke the pipe with horses and talk with them, and then horses sing songs, and to my brother and my other brother can see horse markings, paintings on horses and everything. And so this communication never left, and so I put that in the poetry. Yeah. Anything else?
In a narration of the Crow creation story, Henry Reelbird wrote these words about his grandfather. My grandfather was probably one of the last men ever to wear a breechcloth, even to the day he died. He used to say that he was one of the first Crow Indian children to go to school, to taste beef, and to drink the milk of a domesticated cow.
We lived in the Earth Lodge, but they say that where we come from, it was winter all of the time. And so I never really used to believe in the Bering Straits, but I believe the Bering Straits. Because the Navajo and Dene, Navajo up in British Columbia, and then Dene in Arizona, they speak the same language. But using that concept to come over and be in the Earth Lodge, and they say where we come from, where it was cold all the time, and then into the woodlands and into the lakes, and then finally landed on along the side of the big river, Missouri River, and the Earth Lodge. And then two boys went out and fasted, and one had the vision of the sacred plant of the tobacco, and the other one had the vision of the corn. And so that's where they split up the tribe. And this is before the coming of the horse. And so we walked up Elk River, Yellowstone River, to the mountains. We walked with wolves. Wolves were the ones that carried our pack. And then we made the teepees, and we put the rock at the bottom of the teepees. We are the ones who put the rock at the bottom edge of the teepee. And so from there, we fast up on those big tops over to Yellowstone Park and that country to the east, and then all through that country there, up into the Muscle Shell that drains into the Missouri. And so mysticism, this is where we get everything, the direction, the dream democracy on how the people follow the chief, the man that is good, and so that they vote pretty much by going into that to follow one chief, and so then that's how. And then the chief has all of his sub chiefs and everything else to the health, and then for the elements to control the weather, and then for the warriors, the great warriors, to defend the people. And so then somewhere in there, the buffalo jump operation was given to a Crow man, and from there we operated the buffalo jump until the coming of the horse. And so on that one there, so we were out in the drainage of the Yellowstone and the Bighorn Mountain area, the Elk River, Yellowstone going down, and then the Stillwater and Clearwater, and then we get into the Little Bighorn that comes from the Grand Tetons, Wind River, and then come into turning into the Bighorn River in Wyoming, and then on further we've got the Tongue River that the mouth is over at Miles City, and then the Powder, all starting up from beyond Clouds Peak Mountain with something beyond, and so then Powder, and so this is our range. And so we go to these mountain tops and we pray and seek visions and everything. And so this is the core of the soul of the children of the large-beaked bird, Apsaroga, Abazaraga, child of the large-beaked bird's children. Apsaroga, that's who we are. And we're the mountain people. We call ourselves the mountain people, some mountain people, and then the ones that hang around the lower Yellowstone, Elk River, and on into the Musselshell and hang around on the river a lot. Those are the River Crow. And so they have their chiefs, and we all come together and do everything, events throughout the winter. And so my timing system is different. Our New Year's is in that crescent moon on the longest day of the year. That's when it ends, and then that's where it begins again. And we keep track of each winter by some major event. And just like that's us, the traditional Crow Indian. Just like one time I was dancing over on the Little Bighorn, up close to where it comes out of the mountain, and I danced in the Sundance and chased the singers away 2 nights in a row. And so this old man, my clan dad, come over and he said, if we were still doing winter counts, we'd mark this winter with how you chase the drummers away. And all of these things, that's the support that I'm talking about, the clan parents asking for things. And so then they saw a dream to where the horses, the people that own the horses are behind the mountain with something beyond, towards the noonday sun, down the mountain, along the mountain, until you get to the place where the people live in clay houses. Those people are the ones that own the horse. And so you wait until full moon, and then you go in, and their leader, the chief, has long, light-colored hair. You kill him, and they won't know what to do. And then you bring this creature, or these creatures back, the horse. And so the Apsaroga got together 10 of the best men and put moccasins all around their belt. So when it runs out, they wear it out, they get a new one and go. And so they picked the best men to go. And so they done that. They went over and found where the clay houses were, the adobe clay houses were, and waited until moonlight, and then went in and killed the boss. And then they gathered the horses and brought them up. And so that's the band that I belong to. That group of Crow Indians. The one went over and grabbed the testicles of the stud and kicked him in the belly. And so then from there, after they brought them back, and they said he got kicked in the belly. And so that we became Kicked in the Belly band. And so then after that, we were able to do warfare a lot faster out on the plains, to where we were being attacked by our only ally was the Nez Perce, on the plateau between the plains and the coast, the Nez Perce. But we were together at times. The Blackfeet and the Sioux and the Cheyenne, at times we all ate together. But most times we tried to kill each other, steal horses and steal women and stuff like that. And so that's how life was out on the plains. And so somehow in that era, the spirit rider mounted on a black horse. Some people say it's a brown horse, bay paint and this and that, but I use my grandpa's stories, and my grandfather, he said that it was a painted black horse, the spirit horse rider, that the spirit horse rider rode. And so when the warriors would be pushed back, then the spirit horse rider mounted on the painted black horse would come in and get the momentum back. In one battle, the Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, they all got together and wanted to kill us off over on Arrow Creek. That would be a little bit southwest of Billings, Montana now, on Pryor Creek, but we know that as Arrow Creek. And so up close into the mountains, the Crows were there, and then they knew that the battle was going to happen, so they got everything ready and dug a hole in a teepee and put the women in there, and then put the teepees inside out. There's a little bit of something wrong, different, to where people can become leery of something. But on that one, they chased the Crows back up into the warriors back up into the side of this rim with boulders and everything else all over, but not so steep maybe, and so the Crows, a rider mounted on a painted black horse, the spirit rider, they couldn't kill him. And so he got the momentum back for the Crows, the Psautoga. And so they were killing the enemy and chased them on over to the Little Bighorn, Owl, and Tongue River, and they left. And so a participant of that battle named my grandfather Owen's Painted Horse, because in that day of that battle, he saw that spirit rider. He rode with him and chased the enemy away. And so he named my grandfather Owen's Painted Horse in hopes that he too will be successful and invincible in his life. And so then that's where I come from as a human being. My grandfather's making, and all of his friends, Dick Daylight, Tom Bull, relative, and Carl Crooked Arm, Ty Crooked Arm, and all these people would come over, and we were lucky that we only had a radio, and so it shut the radio off, and all these old men would tell all these stories. And so then one time, and this isn't, I have this thing in me to where I don't want to make these stories and put them off in the shelf, or I want to live these stories. And so another story is that another woman. So this is prehistory. We're in between. We don't. If our child goes off by itself, the child snatcher, a big dinosaur bird, would come by and take them, and so we know that. But there's another story. The Comanches came, and they were beat up by the Arapaho and Shoshone and everybody up Tent Sleep Canyon by Tent Sleep, Wyoming, the west side of the Bighorn Mountains. Anyway, we found a small group of Comanches that were all beat up and from battling the Shoshone, even though they're one, they came into their territory and they were almost killed off. And so we took them in. My grandpa would always think that they were bad war deeds, and so then that's a clan saying a false war deed, but they caught him, and then that band, that's what they give them. But this story of the coming of the horse, on how a woman was fasting up on an island, and then on the fourth morning, after no food and water for 4 days and 4 nights, as the sun was coming up, the waves were slapping against the shore, and the woman was praying. And all of a sudden she heard, "Ee-ha-ha-ha-ha, ee-ha-ha-ha." She looked over, and as the sun was rising, the most powerful part of the day is the sunrise. The first rays of the sun are the most powerful spiritually, because that's when the spirit of Mother Earth comes out, according to my grandfather. And so then, in the first rays of the sun, hit this creature that came out of the foam of the water. And it was the horse. And the spirit being told this woman, this creature is the horse. Talk good to the horse, and it will take care of you. Horses have a soul, and they talk to each other. If you're good to them, more will come, and you will be lucky with them in a heart that is good. Never strike a horse in the face. And so, take this creature and have it carry the load the wolf dog is now carrying. Give it to your people. So she brought over a bunch of horses and gave it to the people and told. And when we fast, we come back and tell our story in the sweat lodge. But she had all these horses, and then she told her vision. And so then, that's why we have the horse. In the spring, before the longest day of the year, in that moon, the afternoon rain showers come by. And this is when the grass is full grown. On the longest day of the year is when the grass becomes full grown. And the ground is soft. And so about that time, there were puddles all over the place. And so there was one such puddle between the house and the barn. And Grandpa took me over to the puddle, and he said, "Look in there." So I looked in there, and there was nothing. I said, "Grandpa, there's nothing in there." I said, "Look more. Look into it." I looked into it, and by God, there was a piece of horse mane meandering back and forth in that warm, clear puddle. And so it's there. That horsehair came to life. He said, "Get it." I reached for it and blurred the clear water, and I couldn't get him. And I can see him coming out in a clearing again, moving around in there. And I finally got him. I got him and said, "Right here, Grandpa, I got him." And he said, "That's the Maker's way of showing you that the horse is a gift from the water. Put it back." So I put it in. And so all these things, we lived around the horse. And that's all we ever did. We never wanted anything else. I just wanted to ride behind Grandpa when I was young, and then after a while, I was on my own. And then later on, the Padlock Ranch was across the river at that time, and I'd see the cowboys out there sometimes, and that's what I wanted to do, was go to wagon. And so my uncle was there, and so that's where they got me started when I was a sophomore in high school, and that would be 1965. And so I was lucky. I brought a picture over last year for the fundraising. Sometimes I think that somebody might be interested in it, but nobody gave a damn. And some friend of mine got it back for me for $100, But that was beautiful to be up in the front of the chuck wagon and watching the remuda as we were moving from Conley Camp to Black Arrow, or PK, I think it was, yeah. But I try to bring those things to the gathering. The gathering turned out to be an event in our soul, imprinted in our soul, to where we migrate back over here to these people that have beautiful thoughts around the horse, life around the horse, yeah, like that, yeah.
In the introduction to Henry's 2010 book of poetry entitled Horse Tracks, Greg Keeler wrote this: Henry Rilbird breaks a lot of the rules my formal education taught me about writing poetry, but half of Henry's education comes from somewhere else. When Crow is your primary language and your poetry is Crow spoken in English, the rules most likely get written as you go. I asked Henry to talk about his first exposure to poetry.
First exposure to poetry was after I could read. Now that I think about it, it was lullabies that I heard when I was young. After I could think, then I heard them sung for younger people, my brother and stuff like that, and sister and all of that. Amaraloso, irak bayasa, izawruga, karamawusko, uhanalako, perachesa, amaraloso, irak bayasa, izawruga, karamawusko, bishkan mawapasa, chiriashiracha, uhanalako, chadenalako. I said, in the lullaby, it says, Raven, where do you eat? Canadian River upstream is where I eat. I fight for my food with dogs, where wolves have gone, where deer have gone, like that. And so then, that was the poetry. I didn't know that until I hung around in life, but exposure to poetry, after I could read, then there were books my sister brought back from school, and in there they had Eskimo haikus and different things like that, and then I just loved it. And then in school, I just went through the regular program in grade school, high school, and Western Montana College, Montana State University, like that, but then I was in traction in 1969 and looked at the ceiling for six weeks and more. And so then I started writing, piddling around. And this girl wrote a poem for me and gave it to me, and then she went out and she died she killed herself a couple days later. Oh man, I was that close to her. And then I started writing. And then I graduated from college, and then I started teaching, and then didn't have material for the kids, so I started writing children's books, and they took me to write more, and I'd write in board meetings, and then rodeoing and running around. 'Twas half moon out on the longest day, 'twas rodeoing about Oklahoma way. Walked in a feeling late at night, took me a chance, and it turned out right. A Lone Star woman held me tight, a Lone Star woman. But anyway, playing around that way. And then at a cow camp, the last cow camp I had was 1986. But before that, I had the Crow, the world, our world around the Crow Reservation was so corrupt when the energy companies come by and ripped us off, and state of Montana was ripping us off. All this and all these sellout Indians, they bought off, and so I was fighting them, and then it was so corrupt, I flipped over the corrupt machine, and then they threw me out, and I dropped out. And then my uncle, the one that protected me, he died. So then I dropped out of society from 1982 until 1982 to 1986. And so then that's where I started writing poetry. I started writing poetry and going. I'm the feeling morning after yesterday, just before the sun, a little beyond nothing on this side of everything, dreaming of a feeling in a dream. And stuff like that. Rawhide laced allegory. And say you'd like to know why it is I write Bronx. I write Bronx because that's all I wanted to be. Born and raised to write the Bronx, and just putting all my thoughts and feelings into the poetry. And my psychiatrist would always say it's good. It's like cleaning your heart, he would always say. And so I just kept writing, and then this friend of mine from the YMCA got me, and we put Poets on the Prairie. As I was teaching, I'd do that too. Oh, and then I got the 2 books out, but I'm working on a big piece right now to be able to the myths and legends in now time, and then to be able to. Edward Curtis was a artist out in North America, and 1880s and out and through there, documenting the Indians and life out on the Appalachia anywhere. But his are portraits, and they're beautiful ones. But me, I'm going beyond the portrait. I'm putting the legend of the Sun's boy and the Thunderbird, how he took a crow boy to protect her. And so then all of these things I'm putting together, the creation of the world type of thing, and the pipe, how the pipe was brought over by an eagle, and then the 7 places to put the pipe. You smoke with the 4 directions first, the ground, and then the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, and then you're the 7th one to take the smoke. And so on this, at a place where they couldn't kill my grandfather, but my grandmother's dad, up by Jordan, Montana, out in the prairie. Now, I'm drawing a big puff of smoke, and the smoke just spewing out from the bowl of the pipe, and my boy, Eagle that sings, is lighting it, and he's next to me, and we're actually operating the pipe. And so it's pictures like that I'm doing, instead of a stoic Indian standing there like that for a posing. I'm living it like that. Or else in the peyote ceremony, my boy's singing in natural light, and so of the fire, and going that way. And this is what I want to give to the people tomorrow or now, but to show that this Indian is still alive the way it was before the coming of the Longhorn cattle in 1866 by Nelson Story. Yeah.
In the summer of 2010, Henry Reelbird rode horseback 415 miles across northern Montana and northwest North Dakota, handing out books of his poetry along the way. In an interview during that ride with Hal Cannon of the Western Folklife Center, Henry said this: "Nobody has the guts to just saddle up a horse and just go from town to town, just giving out books of poetry and stuff like that. And so I figure that I'm not like everybody else, and that's why I'm the way I am. And so this is just my style of giving back to the people of what I have taken from life out here in Montana."
You see, I'm not like everybody, and I love horses, and I'm in love with thought, minute sounds, rhymes, meters, to dress up a thought in sound to touch a heart, touch an emotion, and then be gone. But I wanted to start from the Earth Lodge, to use a pipe at the Earth Lodge and get on my pony and then go over we have bucking horses, and the bucking horses were bucking over in the Bear Paw Mountains on the Cree Indian Reservation. And so I timed it to where I rode along the Missouri and then moved on over to the Milk, and then went over to the south side of the Bear Paw Mountains. And then our bucking horses, they were brought in by my brothers, and so to meet them there. But in the meantime, to pass out books and do poetry wherever I could, campfires, and people would come over and they just loved it. I'll never forget this one. I was over at what they call Hayes Lodge. No, it was Fort Belknap. Yeah. This old lady come by and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm riding horses. I just want to give out poetry books here, and that's all I'm doing." I said, "Oh, gosh, where are you from?" I said, "Crow. I've been riding over from the Hidatsa, and I'm going over to the Cree." And he said, "Oh, my." And I don't, "Where are you going to be?" And said, "I'm going to be right alongside the road right here. That's where I'm camping right here." So she said, "I'm going to come by this evening." And so she came by that evening, and she made some, we call it a biscuit, pan bread, they call it. But those people up in that, people call it bannock bread, boogeyman bread, and stuff like that. But we call it push bread. Push it together and then put it in the frying pan against the fire and cook it that way. But so she said that's what she made, and she made some blueberry pudding. The blueberries, native blueberries to those are Little Rocky Mountains there, and so she made that, and said, "I'm a little bit poor. All I have is this tenderloin of the elk. That's the best meat that I have." I hugged her, told her that's the best meat to me. And so you get moments like that on the way. And so I know that a poet in Montana frequents the urban areas, the big cities of Montana, Billings, Montana, and Missoula, Montana, the hub of the universities, yeah. And so that's where those people were. And until they brought me out, I go in there with those people in Bozeman, Billings, and Missoula and stuff like that. And so this is me. I don't think anybody else would want to ride like that. And so that's why I done that. I done that because I have a little flavor in my soul for that, yeah.
Henry Realbird has a master's degree in general education, and he has taught school from kindergarten to the college level. I asked Henry to talk about his work with children and poetry.
I always tell them, a blank sheet of paper is freedom. Now create a setting, a character with feeling. or else maybe just see the sunset or sunrise and put the colors in. And this little girl, ribbons of pink and lavender and purple, orange ribbons, shiny colored ribbons, make the sunset. And I always like that. I've taught grade school, junior high language arts. And right there, they're just about ready to come out of the cocoon type of thing. And I work with them. We had, we 4 directions, right about the 4 directions. And this boy said, when I wake up, I see towards the sunrise a dead dog frozen in the snow, and I see a bunch of junk cars to the south, and to the west I see a bunch of bulls, and then to the north I see the mountains, and that's Aaron. And I mean, that's his world. That's the world that he lived in. And talk about being poor. I never really thought about it, but talk about being poor. The sole of my shoes are they come undone, and the tip to the back, the flap is down, and so I have to carry it up. And so the kids looked at me and thought that they said that my shoes were hungry. He has a hungry shoe. And so writing reality, should I do this? And Wally McCrae, when I've come around, Wally McCrae and them were there. Wally had been doing it probably a lot longer, but Wally, I'm going to do this. What do you think? Oh, gosh, do that. And so then Wally was my censor at the time, in the beginning, and I'd move along. But the boy said, one day, I saw Henry Reelbird and Aloysius Crooked Arm kicking an empty can going down the street, and when I asked them what they were doing, they said they were moving. And that was, I used to give my students names. That was Vine, Deloria, white man. And he put that together, and I told him I love him so much for writing, to be able to describe poverty like that. But anyway, in writing all these events and feelings of the tribe, the community, and locale, to be able to draw, get them to come out and to not be afraid of anything. And if they don't want to share, I don't share. But if they want to share, we do that. But to get a little girl to come out, and she was writing so beautiful, and I loved her so much. And the librarian called me over, and she said, Henry, you know what that girl did? You know who that girl is? No, she's a beautiful writer, that little girl. And she said, she's waiting for trial because she set the school on fire and lamed her. She said, and I never knew that, you know. But I give everybody a chance, and then to be able to write poems. I worked at the community college, and every month, every moon, I would write a poem and put it on the bulletin board, and until they started writing dirty things on there, so I quit. But as a teacher, I wanted to influence so much, so I finally pushed that out of the way, and so I enjoy writing now. Now I'm into historic events, putting them together and everything, and so right now for here, I'm doing Dream Democracy. That's what I'm doing. And putting all that together like that. But most of it is around the horse. I just love teaching those kids, look at the horse and see when it moves his ear and stuff like that. or I like that part to where they move the skin to get the mosquitoes or the flies off, and all these things that you can in life, whatever it is, and my to be able to go into a rough spot in life and to be able to help life become real human beings. I went to a place where these kids were killing themselves, maybe about, in this community, to where, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe about 8 kids killed themselves in a month and stuff, and so they took me over there to help them write poems, to write and think. And so this little girl, she wrote a poem about how this beautiful old grandmother with wrinkled face and scarf and long dress and a cane, and just how the grandma would hug me and I would feel so much better, and how I wanted to put my head next to grandma and hold her tight. So, how's grandma doing? Said, grandma died last month. To be able to touch him, make him feel better, then move on. That one was a tough one to go in, where a broken community, weak for an evil wind to go through there. But then again, life is such that you have to ride it through, and that's all there is to it. And I've been there before too, where that little girl was and where all those people were. I'm the feeling. Morning after yesterday, just before the sun, a little beyond nothing on this side of everything, dreaming of a feeling in a dream. That's it right there. Dreaming of a feeling in a dream. And then going that way. Yeah. Just one more kiss for the last time. I'm telling you, come back. Hold me tight in this beautiful moonlight. Farewell, sweetheart. No. For the cause. Just one more kiss before I go. All right. So that was it?
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time to...
Now it is good. To be among the thoughts, to be among beautiful thoughts is good. Thank you. Aho.
All right, folks, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Henry Realbird for taking the time to visit with me. If you'd like to learn more about Henry, I'd recommend picking up one of his books of poetry. I'd like to thank the Western Folklife Center in Elko, Nevada, for providing a space to record this interview. You can find out more about the Western Folklife Center at westernfolklife.org. You can find out more about me and this show at andyhedges.com. If you're enjoying this podcast and would like to help me keep it going, you can make a donation on my website. Or you could take the time to leave me a review and a rating on the iTunes store. Or you could simply tell a friend to listen to the show. If you'd like to contact me with a question or a comment or a story, I'd love to hear from you. Send an email to andy@andyhedges.com. Thank you for listening to Cowboy Crossroads.